Welcome to Love Light, the only podcast dedicated to bright, fine art photography. Hosted by Sarah Jane Ethan, Love Light is here to celebrate all things bright, pretty and pastel. At Love Light, white is the new black and beauty is in the detail. This is your place to relax, a place to belong, a place to be inspired and connect with like-minded colleagues who share your passion for light and beauty. So come and introduce yourself in the Love Light Facebook group and subscribe to the Love Light YouTube, podcast and Instagram for your weekly dose of inspiration and connect with bright, fine art photographers from around the world.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode. Today we are joined, I'm getting a little bit starstruck, we are joined by the incredible Finck today. And Greg lives in Paris. He's been a photographer for 10 years and 5 years full-time. He lives in Paris with his fiancée Reem and they're going to get married next summer. So congratulations, Greg. He is one of the top wedding photographers in the world, named by Harper Bazaar. He's been featured in Vogue, Style Me Pretty, and although he also does weddings, he also does fashion and achieved one of his highlights of his career shooting the Balenciaga, I think I've said that right, is a big fashion brand, shooting their campaign last year. So that was incredibly exciting. And he is hosting his very last workshop in Paris on the 23rd to the 26th of March this year. So if you haven't been on one of Greg's workshops, that is an absolute must, and this will be your last chance. So I really wanted to get Greg onto the podcast and just say hello to you because, yeah, this is a big momentous thing that this is your last workshop. Tell us a little bit about what you're moving on to and why this workshop is so important and special to you.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. It's a true pleasure to be here.
You're very welcome.
So yes, it will be the last workshop because what has driven me since the beginning of my career in photography is to propose something which is always different. Try to differentiate myself on the market, whether it is in the weddings that I shoot, in the project that I do, and education and workshop were part of it. And I feel it's been 5 years for my workshop now, and I feel it just becomes so repetitive. And the other thing is that there's like so many workshops on the market right now. So it will be the last workshop that it is right now, meaning the workshop in Paris with like 15 attendees. So I'm not saying I will give up totally on education because I will keep doing like one-on-one sessions and mentoring sessions, and maybe one day something else, but the workshop that it is right now, it will be the last one because once again, just too repetitive and just like too many proposals in the market right now.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's very exciting to know that there's one last chance to learn from you and your wealth of experience. Now, Greg, I want to know a little bit about your story and how you got into photography. So 10 years ago, something happened. You picked up a camera. What did that look like? And how did that shape who you then became and where you went?
So 10 years ago was when I shot my first wedding, but photography has always been part of my life. So my dad was passionate about photography. We had a dark room at home. So I basically had a camera in my hands since I was like 12 or 14 or something like this. Of course, it was a film camera back in the days because I'm old. And so what happened is that my dad taught me how to like shoot with a film camera and also how to process my negatives, how to do my prints, because I mean, it was so great to have a dark room at home. So as far as I can remember, I spent so much time as a kid in the dark with the red lamp and like processes my negs and processing my prints, and it felt like magic. I mean, just putting like a piece of paper in the chemistry and then seeing the photo coming to life. So photography has always been part of my life, but then I followed the safe path, doing some studies. So I studied business in France, then in the United States, and I started working in a big corporation. So I was a marketing manager for Procter and Gamble, which is a big US company.
Wow.
And I did that for 10 years. I don't regret it at all because it brought me so much in terms of business experience, how to run a proper business, how to probably do like marketing and communication. But after 10 years, I kind of like came to an end with it. And I started shooting weddings on the side, and it felt like it was so fun and I loved it. because in the first instance, I love the portraits
Yeah.
aspects of photography. I've always shot portraits. I was shooting portraits of my friends, shooting portraits of my parents, my brother and sister. And out of a sudden, weddings are so fun. So I did that for 5 years next to my day job before realizing I could try to make a living out of it. And that's when I totally quit my job and went full time. So this was 5 years ago.
Amazing. Oh, well, I mean, how special also to have your dad teach you how to do film photography.
Yeah.
I mean, people go to great lengths to learn how to do film photography, and you just were born into it. And that's amazing. So I know that you
Yeah,
shoot a lot.
and it's funny because it's really difficult for me to explain how I compose or the technical
Mhm.
aspects of it, and always have a lot of questions about it. Um, and because photography has always been part of my life, because I feel like I've been always like analyzing photos, and when I walk into a room, I'm going to look at like the lines and the lights. It's very difficult for me to explain what I do because it's part of my personality and I've always done it. So yeah, I mean, big thanks to my dad for that if he's listening to the
So
conversation.
you are amazing. So you feel like your dad actually taught you more than just processing film. He taught you how to see
Yeah,
creatively, how to balance images instinctively, and that is such a gift.
yeah, it's been a mix of my dad teaching me the technical aspects of it and me being an introvert kid, if I might say. So I was spending a lot of time with books, and my parents were kind of frustrated because I didn't read books. I always looked at the photos,
Hilarious.
but I spent so much time like looking at images and analyzing images and looking at the composition. I've always been passionate by imagery, so yeah, it was a mix of me loving images and wanting to produce images, and my dad teaching me the technical aspects of it.
Amazing. That is so great. That is so great. But I think, like you said, I'm the same. I haven't done photography all my life, but I've done art, and so I know what I like, and I don't really know why. And so I knew that I liked images where a person wasn't flat against something, that they were kind of on an angle to it, so that the wall or whatever was just going away from them on an angle. I remember a few years ago hearing somebody teaching, going, "Oh yes, this is actually a technique, and it's called this, in artistic circles
Hmm.
we understand." And I'm thinking, "Oh, it's actually a principle." Like, I had no idea. I just knew that I liked it. I didn't know there was a name for it. So
Yeah,
I,
exactly. And I'm very bad with explaining to you. I mean, in terms of composition, there's the rule of thirds or thing like this, and I mean, I just compose like kind of like intuitively because that's how I see the world. That's and at the end you realize, oh, actually there's a name on it, and I'm like, okay, why not?
I know.
But I think a lot of photographers struggle with shaping their own aesthetic, especially right now with social media, where you are so overwhelmed with like images and photos all the day, especially in the wedding industry. And a big challenge for everybody, me included, is to follow your own aesthetic, because that's what's going to make you unique at the end of the day. And that's why clients are going to book you.
I love that. Now, that is one of the things that I think we all aspire to, but it's actually quite difficult to do, to just be confident in your own creative style and in
Hmm.
your own creative instincts. And how have you done that? And have you felt like there's been highs and lows in that journey of trusting what you see and
Totally.
what you know to be beautiful? And even if you think, oh, I think this is different from what other people think, but I'm just going to go with it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and I think it's permanent. I mean, it's not like I am done right now. I have found my aesthetic, and boom, you like it or you don't like it. I mean, I think the inspiration is permanent. So one big shift for me was 5 years ago when I switched it back to film, because what I didn't mention is that 10 years ago I started shooting weddings on digital.
Ah,
Because it was so easy. I mean, you could fail and do it again, and you could control the results.
very
And
true.
I've shot more than 100 weddings on digital, and you don't want to see these weddings. Um,
Oh,
but
interesting.
but when I went full time, that's when I decided to switch back to film, because I felt like, okay, it's not fun anymore. I mean, it's always fun, but we're not joking anymore. it's going to be your life. It's going to be your real job. So you need to shape that aesthetic and that uniqueness. And that uniqueness is going to come through film because you come from film in the first instance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my signature is. So 5 years ago, I switched back to film, and that was the first defining move for my business. But then you start looking at film photographers, you start looking at Jose Villa, Eric McVeigh, etc. And you're like, I mean, you will be influenced whether you like it or not by these images. So this is going to be the first step. And the second step is going to be, okay, how can I find my own aesthetic, my own signature, my own touch? And then I think I was very much held by fashion. The fact that my fiance is a bridal designer, I've shot a lot of campaigns for her. We're talking a lot at home about like fashion. And living in Paris also brought me a lot of fashion jobs because there are a lot of fashion weeks here. I am grateful to have a lot of fashion clients. And then I realized I like it. I love weddings, but I also like fashion. So how can I kind of mix both of them and still shoot film? Because in fashion, nobody shoots film. Everybody is in digital. So, I mean, yeah, it's meeting people. It's also life. I mean, without meeting my fiance, maybe it would have happened a different way. But yeah, it's a permanent journey, and you're never done with it, and that's the beauty of it.
I love that. I love that because like you said, I think everybody goes on this journey. And for me, I struggled because I felt that my work should have more contrast because I looked at other photographers and they had a darker darks. But I just really like bright, very pastel-y, very soft pictures. And I felt that was amateur, and I was trying to adapt my natural instinct to try and be more acceptable to other people, I think. And I actually, through this Love Light group that we're doing the podcast for, that it was through that group that I got my confidence to just go, no, I like this, and my clients like it, and therefore my bank balance likes it. So I'm just going to go with that. Has there been an aspect of your photography that you feel is so distinctively you that you've had to work really hard to protect? Or was it just the connecting with the fashion side, and just embracing that?
I don't like the idea of protecting something because the very reason why I become a photographer is because there's no barrier in the first place. I mean, everybody can be a photographer, and you don't have to have like a certain degree. I mean, my dad taught me how to become one, and I kind of struggle with the legitimacy of it at the beginning. I was like, who I am, to claim that I am a photographer, to charge this type of price, etc. But the beauty of that job is that if you have an eye, if you have an aesthetic, if you have a talent, even if we can say a lot of things behind that, you can become a photographer. So I don't like the idea of protecting someone. What I am sure is that I have always struggled with, not struggle, I've always worked a lot on differentiation. Yeah. How will I differentiate myself from the market? How can I propose something different? Something very noticeable about that is that I live in Paris, but I don't shoot in Paris.
Yes.
I shoot some portrait sessions in Paris, but I don't shoot weddings in Paris because I am not inspired by weddings in Paris.
Interesting.
My type of lights are more in the south of France and Italy. So 80% of my weddings are going to be in the south of France or Italy.
Yes.
And it still feels like home to me because it's only an hour flight. So compared to flying to California or Asia or New York, I mean, south of France and Italy always feel close.
Yes.
But to me, this is part of my brand. My brand in terms of weddings is in the south of France and Italy, even though I live in Paris. So the way I shaped my brand was always trying to find and always having this question in mind is, okay, which value do I bring to the market? And that's the very question I ask to everybody who comes to see me for a workshop or a mentoring session. Do you bring a value to the market? Because if the answer is, you know what, I just like photography, I took a camera and a friend booked me on a wedding, it's not enough. So what's going to be your differentiation? What's going to be your uniqueness? Shooting film 5 years ago in Europe was a differentiation.
Mm.
Because all of the film shooters back in the day were in the States and there were not a lot in Europe. So this was the first differentiation. The second one was, okay, I'm going to go to the south of France and Italy and try to become a key player in these locations. Because Paris wedding, these are mostly 5-star hotels. These are mostly indoor. The weather is very unpredictable. I mean, it can rain a lot in Paris. So I didn't want that. So I was like, okay, my brand is going to be south of France and Italy. Then something else came with fashion, and it was a beautiful surprise of life. And I'm like, okay, how can I incorporate fashion into my brand? And a lot of my clients on weddings right now come to me because they know that I shoot fashion, and they want that fashion eye. Maybe they will invest a lot of money on their dress because they just love fashion. So these are just like 3 examples of how I differentiate myself on the market, how I try to bring something new or something different. But once again, it's constant. Maybe in 2 years from now, I will tell you something else. Travel has become a major part of my brand. I mean, even though I specialize in the south of France and Italy, it's important for me to keep a certain amount of weddings internationally every year, so that people see that I travel in the States, in South America, in Asia. And if you look at my Instagram, I try to highlight it a lot. I will show you beautiful locations across the world, so that at the end of the day, the clients don't really know where I'm based, which is totally fine.
Yes.
Because if you want to book me for your wedding in Bali, in Thailand, in Chile, in Brazil, I'm your guy.
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah, I've always like worked a lot to differentiate myself and shape everything into my brand.
Amazing. Well, now we mentioned earlier, because you said you don't like shooting weddings in Paris. You actually don't like living in Paris either. Paris is just very convenient for you for your travel, because you're all over the place and Paris flies to pretty much anywhere in the world. So if you had your choice, this is a personal question now, if you had your choice and you could live anywhere and logistics wasn't a factor, where would you choose to live?
California.
Oh, that was a very quick answer. Why California?
Now, when I say that I don't like living in Paris, it's because I've been living in Paris for 20 years now. I started working in Paris, but I originally come from the countryside. I love like big places, which is also the reason why I decided to go shoot most of my weddings in the south of France and Italy. I like big spaces. I like landscapes. And Paris to me, most of the time is overwhelming. I mean, you're stuck in traffic. There's like so many people everywhere. So it kind of distracts me from shooting. I like being calm when I shoot. I like being in a quiet place.
Yes.
And Paris can be very distracting for me. So, I mean, Paris is a great city. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate it, but I don't super like it.
It's not your creative muse, as they say.
And it's funny because I'm very inspired by New York, but I feel like it's always more fun to visit a city like this than to live in this city. So I'm always inspired when I go to New York, but maybe if I lived in New York, it will be the same as Paris.
That's true.
California has always been kind of my heaven in terms of light, in terms of big spaces, in terms also of options. I mean, you have so many options in California. You can shoot in the hills. You can shoot in the mountains in Yosemite, which is amazing. You can shoot on the beach. So many options, and the light is insane. So living in a ranch in California, if I had the money, will be kind of my dream.
So is that the retirement plan? Retire to a ranch in California and live out your days in the landscape?
hopefully before that, but yeah, this is kind of the dream.
Amazing. Now,
but talking about differentiation, I mean, the market for wedding photographers in California is so saturated right now.
Wow.
So it will be a different story.
That's
I feel like right now we are so grateful to work in Europe.
Yes.
Because Europe has become such a big market for destination weddings.
Yeah.
because I said that I mostly shoot in the south of France and Italy, but almost 100% of my clients are from the US.
Right.
So it's become such a big market. Lake Como is such a big market. Puglia, Tuscany, you just name it. I mean, there are so many amazing locations in Europe right now. So it's definitely an advantage to be here on site.
Definitely. And that's something that we noticed when setting up the Love Light group as well, is that there's so many bright fine art photographers in America, not so many over in Europe, which was one of the reasons we just started banding together and just talking to each other for the camaraderie of it, really. Now, you mentioned that you've gone to all of these amazing weddings all over the world on a regular basis. Is there a highlight? Is there a wedding that sticks out in your mind as being one of your favorites? That was a real wow wedding experience and you loved that one.
I tend to love like 90% of the weddings that I shoot. I say 90%. I will not talk about the 10% crazy pride. Hopefully they won't be listening to the podcast.
No, I don't. We're actually trying to make sure that the group only just stays photographers.
Yeah, I remember that wedding 3 or 4 years ago. I shot with Sarah Haywood, who is a great planner in the UK. She's based in London. I love working with Sarah. And it was kind of like my biggest wedding back in the day. And John Legend was playing the piano during the reception. So it was a highlight. And I didn't know before showing up to the wedding, because it was kind of a surprise for the guests. So nobody knew about it except the wedding planning team. And then I start listening to John Legend during not the ceremony, sorry, the reception. And I'm like, whoa, this sound system is really good. It feels like he's in the room. And then I turn my head and he's here playing the piano. So
oh my goodness, that is crazy. Then you just get some. I shot a wedding a few years ago where the groom, how was it? So he said, "Oh, I baked the wedding cake." And I said, "Oh, did you?" He said, "Yeah. Didn't you know I was MasterChef champion, celebrity MasterChef champion?" And I looked at him, and he was an Irishman. You know, and Irishmen are like always like bantering and trying to tease you and trying to trick you. So he had this twinkle in his eye, and he said, "Didn't you know I was celebrity MasterChef champion?" And I went, "No, you weren't." and he went, "Yeah, I was." He was like laughing, going, "Don't you believe me? Don't you believe me?" And I had this moment. I was like, and I went, "No, I don't believe you." Anyway, I got home and I Googled him. Turns out he's like a full-on celebrity. He's got his own cooking show. He's been in the Olympics. He's like, I was like, I had literally no idea who that guy. I knew that they brought out a large, like full-size cutout of him, and everyone was taking pictures with it. And I had no idea why. I just thought, oh, that's a funny thing. So yeah, awesome. Sometimes it takes you by surprise. Now that brings us on to an interesting question, because we were chatting about this earlier. Obviously, you are shooting quite high-end weddings. Your clientele, are often quite exclusive. And a picture that I saw of you a few years ago, there was one guy in amongst the crowd of these very nice guests, all in their tuxes and evening dresses, who was wearing a dirty white t-shirt. He had a camera, a dirty white t-shirt, a pair of ripped jeans, and a pair of trainers. And I thought, and I host a Facebook group for photographers in my city, and I mentioned it to them, saying, who turns up to a wedding wearing jeans and trainers? And it turns out all of them thought that, well, most of them thought that was absolutely fine, and I was in the minority. And it was something that I had very strong opinions about how you dress for a wedding. And it turns out you have similar opinions about the respect that you show through what you're wearing at a wedding.
Yeah, totally. I think people don't realize that I think at least 50% of the impression that you're going to get on your clients is going to be on the wedding day.
Yes.
I always mention that when I say goodbye to my clients on the dance floor, they always, 90% of them are going to thank me and say that they had an amazing experience with me, which is something funny because so far we haven't seen any photo. And my job is still to deliver a product, which is like a gallery and the photos of the wedding. But before even seeing any photos, they will be like, oh my God, thank you, Greg. You've been amazing. We had such a great experience with you. You were so fun to work with, so professional. So people don't realize as a wedding photographer, you're very visible on a wedding. And it's funny that you remember that very guy on that wedding because I mean, you're so visible, and if you stand out, people are going to see it. So yeah, I always wear a black suit and a black tie on a wedding. So it's always black tie. And when I say me, it's me and my team, because in average I work with a team of 3. So it's me plus my assistant plus my second shooter. And we are all in a black tie dress code.
Yes.
I don't do tux. I don't do bow ties because I don't want to be perceived as a guest.
Yeah.
I still want to be perceived as someone who's working and as a wedding vendor. But black tie is something I always do. And if you don't want to do it, you're not part of my team. Yeah. And the average budget of my weddings in total will be, I guess, approximately between 0.5 and $1 million. Yes. And I have seen wedding vendors being kicked out of the room by either the wedding planner or the mother of the bride or the mother of the groom because they were not properly dressed.
Wow.
So I'm very, very anal about that. And because sometimes I have discussion with the people in my team, like, oh, can I wear a pair of sneakers, like black sneakers? Because I mean, we're gonna stand up doing like 14 hours. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Maybe it's 14 hours, but it's just one day. And I don't want to compromise my brand image or my branding because you're wearing sneakers. Yeah. So I will pay you a full feet massage tomorrow if you want. But please don't come on one of my weddings with sneakers. So it's very, very important to me. And I think that people don't realize how much it can impact your branding.
Yes. Why do you think it negatively impacts your branding if you aren't dressed respectfully or appropriately for a wedding? Or
I think if you're aiming at shooting high-end weddings and luxury weddings, you need to adopt all the codes of these weddings.
So true.
So it is in the way you speak, it's in the way you behave. You won't be eating canapes at the buffet. I won't be drinking in front of the guests. So if I want to do that, I will go in a specific room. You don't want to leave your suitcase in the middle of the ceremony so that the clients have paid for this amazing design, and all of a sudden you have like big equipment suitcase in the middle. So everything to me is related, but more than that, I'm always like, why will I take the risk? Yeah. If I'm wearing a black tie, if I'm behaving properly, I don't take any risk. Yeah. I don't want to. I mean, I have so much pressure on a wedding day, on the final results, on the weather, on everything which is unpredictable on a wedding. I want to master everything that I can control. And the way I dress is something I can control. So true. The same with timing. I will always arrive 1 hour before because I don't want to take the risk of being stuck in traffic. I mean, you can ask my team and my assistants. I am never as angry as when I'm late on a wedding. Wow. When the clients told you, okay, Greg, let's meet at 12, and I show up at 12:05, I'm like mortified. Yeah. So I know it's going to place me in very bad conditions for the rest of the day. Yeah. And I don't want that. So everything that I can control, I will control it. Yes. And I only shoot 20 weddings a year, so it's not a lot to ask. No. If I have to wear a tux and like, not a tux, sorry, like a black suit and like business shoot for 14 hours, it's only going to happen 20 times during the year. So I can do that. That's true. So I want to control everything that I can control because I know that there will be events and things happening on the day that I won't be able to control, and they're going to put a stretch on my work. So true. Yeah, I'm the same. I always tell people I'm going to arrive at 12 because I know I'm going to arrive at 11:15. So I tell them 12, knowing that that's not the time I'm arriving. I'm arriving early. But then I also want the buffer time. I don't want to tell them 12:15, and then I do get stuck in traffic because then, like you, I'm so stressed then because I told them 12:15. So I always, give myself, like you said, that space to arrive rested and feeling like, yes, they feel good, I feel good. Let's
Let's do this. Amazing. Now, here's an interesting question for you, because you mentioned that when you were growing up, your dad taught you how to develop film, and that was one of the things that really excited you, was just seeing this piece of paper coming alive with an image. Do you still sometimes develop your own images, or is it all done in a lab now?
No, I will love that. Living in Paris, I've always missed the space of it. I mean, I don't have a spare room in my apartment where I could do that, but I will come back to it for sure.
Yes,
I will come back to it
when
for
you've got
sure.
your cabin in California and your pipe in your
Exactly.
slippers.
I will have a dedicated room to be a dark room. No, I just love that. And I mean, today the printing process is so industrialized. Even though I know that my lab, Richard Fur Lab in California, they still do some artistic or crafted prints in a darkroom. I mean, there's no result as like printing your own images. You can control the time. You leave it in the chemistry so that the darks or the blacks can be like super deep. I mean, I just love it. So I will come back to it for sure.
Definitely. So what is it that you love about film? You said that you shot on digital and you did not like it just didn't click with you. What is it about film that just makes you come alive creatively?
I would say the organic feel of it. And I mean, it's an endless discussion. And even though I shoot 80% of my work on film, I still shoot some digital because sometimes I have to. 2 days ago in Paris, I shot the fashion week for Elisab. I posted the photo on my blog yesterday, and it was on digital because the client will require the photos the very same day. And as of a sudden, everybody's asking me questions and like Instagram messages like, Greg, was it shot on film? And I don't like answering that because I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, does it make a difference? If you like it, if it resonates for you, we don't care if it was shot on film, on digital, or on your iPhone. Sometimes I will post an iPhone preview of a wedding and people are like, oh my God, I just love film. And yeah, it's iPhone.
That's
so I love film for many reasons. The first one is the organic feel of it. So some people, some photographers will reply, yes, but I can do the same with editing my digital photos. And I will reply, okay, good for you, because I can't. I just can't. And even if I could, I don't want to spend the time.
Yeah.
So the second thing I love about film is the fact that it has reduced so massively my editing time.
Interesting.
That I can just like focus on shooting, traveling, because I traveled so much. Last year I've been traveling. I've been out of my home for 60% of the year. So 60% of the year I'm going to be on the road.
Yeah.
So if I should add editing time in my agenda, I will just have to decline jobs because otherwise I will not be able to deliver my photos to all of my clients. And to me, editing is not adding value to my business. Because, I mean, maybe some photographers are great with it. Maybe they're quick with it. I'm not. I'm not good with it. I don't like it. So it will take me forever. So I feel like it doesn't add value to my business. So the first question was, okay, how can I outsource editing? Because I don't like that and somebody will do it better for me. And quickly enough, I came to the conclusion that, okay, I can still outsource this, but the result in terms of imagery is not the one I love. The one I love is film. And guess what? I'm just spending my time and investing my time on shooting, traveling for my clients. Then I ship all of my rolls to Richard Photo Lab. And when it comes back to me, it's just perfect. So, of course, it cost me a lot of money. And film to me was almost $70,000 last year. So it's huge in my business. But it's saving me so much time. And I can tell you that I work a lot, so I have no idea how I could make this fit into my agenda.
Yes. I think that's so important, just to craft out your working style and the type of work-life balance and business stresses that you want to have, and that's different for everyone. That's so true. Now, was there a process working with Richard to get your, because I don't shoot film myself, but I know a lot of people in Love Light do, and are branching out into film. Is there a process of the lab starting to understand your preferences and how you like, and was that a lengthy process? And because I imagine now, because of how easy you say it is, that they just know, right, this is how Greg wants his pictures, or was it difficult to get there?
There is totally a process. I will not say it was difficult, but there is a process. And of course, there's different way of scanning. First of all, there's 2 different scanners, the Maritsu and the Frontier. So you have to know which one works best for you. Then there's different ways of scanning, because you can like your magenta like this, you can like your greens like that. So Richard Photo Lab or any lab will try to identify what it is that you like. And it's a constant process. I mean, I've been using Richard for 6 years now.
Wow.
And the relationship with your lab is always like communication. I mean, you have to debrief them when there's something that you don't like. The big warning for photographers that I will say here is that people tend to look at a photo from Jose Villa, Greg Finck, or Eric McVeigh, and they will go to Richard Photo Lab and say, okay, this is what I like. And what they don't realize is that these photographers, me included, we have developed a consistent way of shooting that will produce a consistent result.
Yes.
And people tend to think that, okay, I'm grabbing a film camera, I'm going to expose whatever it is, however it is that I'm going to expose, and then I'm going to send it to my lab, and I want the Jose Villa looks. It doesn't work this way. So my way of exposing is always the same, and my way of shooting is always the same, meaning I mostly shoot with 3 types of light when I shoot film.
Okay.
I probably shoot 80% of my images backlight.
Right.
80% of them.
Yes.
Which come to the conclusion for some clients sometimes like, oh, Greg, we just have a problem with the photos. The sky is not blue. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. I shoot backlight, so I will expose for your face and not for the blue sky.
Yeah.
But I will shoot 80% of my photos backlight because I just love the look of it. It's very soft. It gives these very natural tones to the photos. If I'm indoor, I'm going to shoot with window lights. Yeah. I will place you in front of a light, just like you are right now behind your computer.
Yes.
I never try backlight indoor. I never try profile to the light. No, it's always like light falling down on you.
Right. Yeah.
And if I don't have backlight or if I don't have window light, I will shoot in an open shade, for example, for details.
Yes.
But I've become so obsessed with finding the right light, and it will always come down to one of these 3, that at the end of the day, I guess my result is very consistent in terms of color, in terms of lighting. I will never shoot a photo with direct light. It's too contrasty to me.
Yes.
Except, of course, if I have to, because for some reason the ceremony is going to set up like this.
Yes.
At 2 p.m. in the afternoon. First of all, I will try to talk to the planner beforehand and try not to have the ceremony at 2 p.m. But sometimes you have to. But otherwise, what I mean is that you have to work so much on your heart that you will reach a consistent way of shooting. Mm-hmm. And you cannot blame your lab for bad results if you're not perfect with the way of shooting. Yeah. A good example for that, I've seen photographers telling to Richard for lab, I feel like the photos are too green. Yes, that's because you shot under a tree with grass reflection. If you do that, the photos is going to be green. Right. If you're shooting in a shade, but the wall in front of you is yellow or orange, the skin tone is going to be yellow or orange. It's not because of your scanning process. It's because the light that you have chosen was not perfect in the first instance.
Yeah.
So, of course, working and communicating with your lab is important to reach the perfect result, because you're paying a lot of money to your lab and the result has to be perfect. But you cannot blame everything on your lab if you're not shooting consistently.
So true. And is that something that that you do on your workshop? Is there a practical element to the workshop in March where you're teaching people how to find that perfect light without any color?
We talk about that especially during the photo shoot, because we have one full day doing a photo shoot in a big chateau outside of Paris. I don't specifically talk about it during classes because we don't only have film shooters. So it will be frustrating for the digital shooters, but I'm trying to be very close to the film shooters during the photo shoot, just to optimize the choice of the light. Because I realize that when you shoot film and when you are in a workshop, people tend to be very obsessed with, oh my God, how do I meter? And I see them with their light meter and trying to get that 45-degree things. And what's important for people to realize is that when you start shooting film, to me, what I've seen so far based on my experience, most of mistakes don't come from exposure. They come from not taking enough time to focus, and then there's a lot of out of focus images, or they come from not finding the right light. Because what's happening with digital is that if you don't have the right light, you can still try to correct it in the editing process. When it is on film, it's difficult to do that. So I try to relax the attendees, always explaining to them that this is a moment for them to try different things or make mistakes, because if you want to be doing mistakes, please do them on a workshop and not on a real wedding.
Very true, very true.
So yeah, I try to help them looking at what's happening, because most of the time, and I think that's one of the perks of like shooting a lot of digital, people are like, okay, let's go shoot. When I'm like, okay, let's pause. Let's look at this room. Let's look at this space. First, where is it that you want to shoot? What is the right angle? How is the light falling down on your subject? And this is a reflex that you need to have in every occasion. If you're doing a style shoot and the table is not in the right place, you just ask to the designer to turn the table, or you choose the best angle. And this is going to determine everything. And that's why I love film. I can just like take some time looking, analyzing the scene in front of me, and then shooting it just easy. It's just like composing, but the light's going to be perfect from the angle that I'm shooting. And I can just like have fun. I'm not stressed by, oh my God, this is not good, but I will correct afterwards. No, I want the result to be perfect as I shoot, because I don't want to spend time correcting my mistakes in the editing process.
Yes, that was something that a very good friend of ours told us when we first started photography. You can't polish a turd. If it's not a good picture, there's nothing you can do with it. You just have to get it right in camera. And I noticed that about my own work. When I took a picture that I looked on the back of the camera and thought, oh, I love it. That's the picture that, actually then I can edit well. And it's got to be one that I love on the camera, first of all.
And it's a comment that I often have on digital photos, because once again, I will still post some digital photos, most of them being previews of my wedding. I would just like to make a quick shot just to post on Instagram the next day. And if the photo is good, and if the light is good, the editing process all of a sudden is going to be so easy. And a lot of photographers sell presets out of that, saying, oh my God, look at the result, it's so close. And I'm like, yes, but if the light's good, and you're a great photographer because you're setting presets so you know a good light, it's so easy to make two photos, one digital, one film, match, because the condition was amazing. I think one false interpretation that some photographers will have is that, okay, these presets or my editing process can correct anything, even a bad photo. And the answer is no, it can't.
No.
If the photo is bad, there's nothing you can do with it. And it's a false interpretation that you do with digital, where you're like, okay, I'm gathering everything that I can. I'm going to shoot up to 10,000 images on my wedding day, and we'll see afterwards. No, you don't want to be doing that. You have to work hard on the wedding day so that every single photo is like well thought, and that it's going to be great at the end. I don't shoot more than 1,200 photos on a wedding day. and I will deliver 800 of them.
Yeah.
So I don't shoot a lot. I, every single one is carefully thought
Yeah.
and analyzed before shooting.
Now, that is a fascinating thing to know, actually, because I was literally having a conversation with a photographer yesterday about this, because she was saying, SJ, how do you edit? Because I shoot digitally and I edit a whole wedding in 6 hours, sometimes between 4 or 6 hours, I can have the whole thing done. I think similar to you,
That's great.
I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm editing, and I've got the shortcut keys on my computer, and, and they're all done. And so I was talking through with her how she could speed up her editing process, and she then said she was delivering 1,200 pictures. And I said, well, that might be a problem. I said, because I deliver between 600 and 800 because I just want to go for my absolute best pictures. So that's interesting to know that you on average deliver 800 pictures, and your clients always feel that that's enough. They're not missing any. So there's no need for you to deliver any more than that.
So 800 will be just on a wedding day. Most of my weddings are usually multi-day events.
Yes.
Including like a rehearsal dinner, sometimes an after party, a brunch party the next day. So if it's a 3 days event, I will be closer to 1,200 images. I also must say that since 2 years, I hired an amazing second shooter. She's called Ranska Marie. She's one of the best wedding photographers in South Africa.
Oh, amazing.
And the reason why she works with me so much is because her wedding season is in the winter for us because she lives in South Africa.
Right.
So I'm so grateful that she will come spend the summer with me, and adding her work to mine has added so much value.
Wow.
Also because we're very different in our approach. I'm very much onto the editorial side of things, staying close to the bride and groom, shooting a lot of details. And she's all about family. She will get all of these like amazing family photos of like grandchildren around the grandma. And all of a sudden, it brings so much value to my galleries. So my average number of photos I've kind of exploded over the past 2 years because she has brought so much value to my work. But I have never had like a limit in my head, like, oh my God, I have to deliver at least X number of photos to my clients because otherwise they will think it's not enough. Sometimes I deliver less, and if I deliver less, that's because not a lot of things happen in the wedding.
Well, yeah, we're not magicians. If there's nothing there,
exactly.
Create it.
And you know what? I went to Mexico in December, shoot a wedding where there were only 12 guests.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an amazing project. The bride and groom flew to Mexico with only like parents and their best friends. So it was like 14 of them in total. And it was a 3 days event. And I have delivered 2,000 photos for this wedding.
Wow.
And I didn't even have a second shooter. It was only me. So, it also depends on what's going to happen in your wedding. Is there going to be lots of like photo opportunities? Are you going to be flexible with me? And if we're traveling to Mexico, if I tell you, okay, let's wake up tomorrow to like make a sunrise session on the beach, will you be up for it? So I don't want to have like a quantitative limit.
Yeah.
Because I don't do quantity. If you want like 2,000 photos, just take like a digital photographers with a team of 4, and there's a lot of people doing that, and they will do it nicely. I will deliver maybe 700, maybe 600, but each one of them is going to be curated. Each one of them is going to be selected. If I shoot a group like you and your parents, I will maybe make like 10 shots of it because it's such an important shot, but I will deliver 2. One portrait, one landscape, and this will be the best one. If I deliver 3 of them, you won't know which one to choose. And I don't want to leave you with that choice. It's going to be difficult for you. So I'm going to give you the most perfect portrait and the most perfect landscape, and you have your family shot.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely, and I'm the same. Well, for me, it's just the rule of probability. If I just go click, 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 click during the group pictures, the rule of probability, there's one picture that's got everybody with their eyes open, and that's all I want.
Exactly, that's another thing.
or people are.
I will never deliver a group shot where someone has their eye closed.
No.
So if I don't have that very single photo with everybody with the eye open, I will just take like that face from another photo and Photoshop it.
Yes.
But I will only deliver one perfect photo of this scene.
Yes, absolutely. So now this photographer that you work with, she sounds fascinating. I might have to reach out to her and see if we can get her on the podcast. She sounds like an
She's
incredible,
great. She's
incredible
amazing.
woman.
Right,
And it
yeah.
sounds like that's a perfect partnership, that if she has different skills and different creative focus to you, and that's just really complemented the way you work. So I suppose that's something that we can all do to develop our work, is actually find those partnerships with people who work in a different way to us that really enhances. How did you come about getting in contact with her being in South Africa and you over here? How did that partnership come about?
It's funny. It's also one of the beautiful encounters of life, because she got in touch with me 2 years ago and told me, Greg, I would love to work with you. And I came to the point in my business where I was charging a certain amount of money that I had to come with a team. It could not be just me and an assistant. So 2 years ago, I started working with a team of 3, me, my assistant, and a second shooter. But to be honest, at the beginning, I didn't have like great expectations, because it's not that I didn't have great experiences with second shooter, but I always ended up delivering 95% of my images. So when I used the second shooter before, it was more like, okay, I missed that moment. She got it or he got it. So I'm going to add that photo. But it was so different from my work. The first reason being that this second shooter that I used before, they were working on digital. Right. All of a sudden, Renske called me and say, I'm shooting film. And I'm like, oh my God, and you can actually shoot film pretty well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give you like film. And she's like, how many films do you want me to shoot? And I'm like, as much as possible.
Wow.
As much as possible. Just don't duplicate the shoots that I make, because otherwise it's going to be a huge waste of money.
Yeah.
So if I shoot the decor of the reception, don't do it. We're going to speed rolls. And it was an adjustment to make at the beginning, because I think as a photographer, you just can't help but shooting beautiful details when you see them in front of you.
Yeah.
So this was the adjustment that we had to do. And then quickly enough, I realized that we had such different strengths and weaknesses. So for example, when it comes to shooting guests, she's amazing. Because I like the clean portraits of guests, and I can have a beautiful portraits of the guest or a couple just like standing facing me, clean background. But she will get more out of it. She will get like emotions. We've once again identifying the right people in the family, like the right parents, and she will get amazing emotions out of it. She's better than me with party shots.
Right.
He loves working with flashes and like 2 or 3 at the same time. I hate it. I hate it because I'm so basic when I shoot it. I don't have any straps. It's just me and my camera. Sorry, and just natural lights. So I just want to focus on a subject, my camera, natural light. That's it. She likes the fancy equipment with so her party shots are amazing. So it's not that I'm going to rest at the bar during the party, but almost. It's like, okay, Renske, you're taking over. So it's funny because it's come to this situation where we know exactly who's going to work depending on the time of the day. Mm-hmm. Like getting ready, this is my part. Detailed shot, this is my part. Couple shot, this is my part. You can just rest or assist me with equipment, but during cocktail, guest portraits, everything which is guest related or family related or party shots, this is your time. So it's also come with the fact that we've been working together for like 2 years. So we probably shot like, I don't know, 20 or 30 weddings together. And she's going to work with me again on all of my weddings this year. So it comes with experience, but I'm so grateful to have her in my team.
It just sounds like the perfect partnership, because it frees you up to focus on what creatively excites you and know that you can keep your brain free and let her.
And also to be 100% confident with someone, because if you don't have someone regular in your team, you're always like, maybe I should double this photo, but then you lose the interest of having a second shooter.
Yeah. So, Greg, tell me then about this workshop. If people come on this workshop, what can they expect to get from it? What will they go away having learned or be inspired by or equipped with?
So the first thing I will say is the workshop is 70% focus on business.
Right.
Because I come from business and I feel like business is something that is missing in the industry right now.
So true.
So I like to say that it's not the usual workshop, even though there are so many on the market right now. And the first one is because we focus a lot on business. I share every single of my members, starting from my pricing to how I do a business plan. Every attendees gets out with like takeaways, which are my files. I share my business plan files. I share or I design my pricing so that I'm sure that my margin is good enough. So the first aspect of it is going to be business. The second one is going to be branding, which is also linked to business, but focusing on branding and how you can design the perfect brand for your business. Mm-hmm. So we are going to work on your strengths, on your weaknesses, on your portfolio. We're going to review it together, and we're going to shape your brand so that you can differentiate yourself in the market tomorrow and have the proper communication. People today, they are totally lost with communication. They're like, okay, so I understood that I have to post on Instagram every day and this is going to bring me clients. No, maybe it's not the answer for you. Submitting to blogs, maybe the answer, maybe it's not. Submitting to blog books, maybe the answer, maybe it's not. So we are going to find the perfect communication for you so that you can be targeted in every single action that you put in place for your business. I always say, people usually come to me and say, I don't book, so I'm going to lower my pricing. And I think like decreasing your price is the biggest mistake that you can do, because to me, at the end of your business, you should be increasing your price every year. If you don't book, it is because there is something that you don't do right in your branding, in your communication, in your business. It's not because of your pricing.
So true.
If you generate enough inquiries, people will keep on telling you that you're too expensive. People tell me that I'm too expensive every day. They have told me that when I was charging $500 10 years ago, they're telling me that I'm charging $30,000 right now. So I've always been too expensive for someone, and it's just fine. The question is, do you generate enough inquiries so that you still book your 15 or 20 or 30 weddings per year?
Yeah.
And so we are going to work on all of the aspects of the business so that you can have the right business plan and the right direction for your business. So it's not only a business, because of course we're going to talk about all the other aspects. How do you measure for film? How do you use the lights? How do you optimize? Because once again, we have a full day of photo shoots in Château de Vaux-le-Vicomte, which is an amazing 17th century chateau outside of Paris. But I mean, having run this workshop for 5 years now, the feedback of people is always like, oh my God, I didn't expect so much in terms of takeaways, in terms of numbers, in terms of transparency, because I share everything. So it's not just, okay, you know what, find your signature, go shoot, and good luck. It's going to be like, okay, let's make a status of your business right now. What is working? What is not working? And let's see how we can optimize everything for you, because there's not one recipe.
Yes. I love that. And I love that there's that one-to-one attention as well to look through your portfolio. Is the attendee list limited? Is there only a certain number of people going so that everybody gets that one-to-one attention from you?
Yeah, I limit it to, I will say, between 12 and 15 attendees.
Brilliant.
This year, we're going to be closer to 12.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it's just difficult to turn down people. So last year I had 20. 20 is a lot. I don't want to do it anymore because it distracts me from the attention that every one of them can get. So we have time dedicated for one-on-one, for portfolio reviews. And of course, what I didn't mention, but which is obvious, is that this workshop is also made to connect, because we have a team with Geraldine Magazine, who is flying from California. We have Tulipina, who is probably one of the most amazing floral designer right now. She will be styling the workshop at Volvicomte.
Wow.
Rim will be here to talk about bridal design. Harold James will be here to talk about hair and makeup. So we have a team of between 7 and 10 people, also to connect and explain to the attendees what it is to work on the high-end market, because all of these people work on the high-end market.
Yes, I love that. And like you said, it's all well and good to say, you know, oh, if you love film, you should shoot film. When you said it costs you $70,000 a year to shoot film, and you know, oh, make a partnership with another incredible photographer from around the world if you can't afford to pay them. So you are the person to come to. You've got the, you know, for anyone listening,
film is not the answer for everybody.
No,
it is not.
No.
You need to have a good reason. So I have some photographers who told me, "Oh, Greg, I want to shoot the film," and I'm like, "Why?"
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a good reason, let's do it. If you don't, it's going to cost you lots of money. Yeah. So if you are able to translate this cost into your pricing and you can find clients at this price, you should do it. If not, don't do it.
Yeah. So true. So true. Like you said, it's the bottom line, and actually having a work-life balance. You've just taken January and February to spend a lot of time with your family this year. And, you know, we were talking about how that's really, at the end of the day, that's, you know, that's a really important part of life, is life outside of photography. So thank you so much, Greg, for spending time with us. And for anyone listening, this workshop with Greg is just going to be so fantastic. As he's explained, it's not just the practicalities, although you will learn all the practicalities about photography and shooting film, but also how to charge the prices that you need to be able to do the thing that you love. And so if you're shooting film or struggling to get the clients and want to learn how to charge $30,000 a wedding to cover those costs, then Greg is definitely the man to see. And this is your last chance. So get booked in for that workshop on the 23rd to the 26th of March. Greg, where can people go to get information about that workshop and to get booked in?
So everything is on my website, so gregfinck.com, and there's a section called education, and everything is in there.
Amazing. So we will post a link to that in the Love Light Facebook group. Greg, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And I look forward to hearing about your cabin in California in the future.
Hopefully.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed today's episode, you can find more interviews, tips and inspiration in the Love Light Fine Art community on Facebook. You can also follow along with each new episode on the Love Light YouTube, podcast and Instagram. And don't forget to visit www.sarahjaneethan.co.uk/lovelight for information on training, real-life wedding workshops and online courses to develop your own fine art photography and connect with more of the clients you love.